Look up, nothing but blue skies stretched out, arms behind my head. And though when I started on this journey I was wrong, and the hand that I was dealt seemed so unfair, I'm content with these sweetest days.
When Fran was first told that she had secondary breast cancer and the fact that it would kill her, which is the words the doctor used, of course it's a great shock. But when you go home and sit down in stunned silence to work out what all this means, it's quite an abstract idea that here's someone who's, for all intents and purposes, in excellent health. She had a slight cough and they found the secondary growing in her bronchioles, but it's only a little red mark at that stage. And trying to come to the acceptance that this person was going to go from being really fit and healthy, or apparently so, to dying from this disease. It took some accepting and realising what that was going to mean, because there's no time frame. They don't say, well, 2 years' time it's going to be this, and then 3 years, and so you can't plan for it. You just it just seems so far away. So you tend to talk about it in bursts, and then it lays dormant again as the good health prevails, and because there's no point taking chemo at that stage. There's nothing that was affecting your health. I mean, the chemo should only be when it's a last resort thing, when you're starting to impact on your way of life. But often people said, "How's Fran?" And often said that there was always clouds in the sky. I mean, when you're well, you go outside and the skies are blue and it's a wonderful day. Whereas in her case, there was always a cloud in the sky. Some days they were just little light white clouds and not impacting much at all. Other days they were quite stormy, and getting it down and realising that this is a fatal disease. And then the next day they clear up a bit and come back again to feeling okay. So yeah, they were the hardest things to deal with. This a terminal disease that currently has no physical manifestation, but it does affect your mind, knowing that you'll die from it in an unknown period of time. So you've got to, and that's where I think where the support groups come in handy. They get together and they talk about these things, and so you start to assemble some plan of how you're going to attack this problem. Then it was about almost 3.5 years before she had to have some chemo when it first started to impact on her health. It was only light dose again. So that was in 2005, and it went right through to 2008. So another 3 years or so before she'd needed some serious chemo. So in that period of time, you're just trying to balance up the fact that I'm feeling okay, I want to work, I want to contribute, with the fact that, well, in a period of time that's unknown, that it'll be fatal. And it's hard to talk about because you just don't sit down and say, right, let's talk about this now. You've got to wait for the right moment. And when is the right moment? Well, it'll just occur. You don't want to be frightened of it, but just be listening to what the partner's saying. And if they want to talk about it, fine. If they don't want to talk about it, well, that's fine too. Because there were days when Fran just didn't want to talk about it. You had other things to contemplate, but eventually take over thinking, and then just want to sit down and chat about, it'd be just little things, what to do with some of her assets that she has, clothes and teaching resources and things like that. So yeah, just chat about that, and then it'll be all over in a few minutes and go on to something else. So it gets incorporated in your everyday conversation the best way you can. But you don't want to say, well, not this again, because it's part of the process. It's part of being on that journey with them, because you're part of it in the fact that you're the closest person for them to talk to, and they want a listening as well as some reflection, empathy, and whatever support you can give. So. Someone who survived breast cancer and has had reconstruction. It's not a beautiful breast or an ugly breast or whatever. It's just it's a representation of what you've gone through. So I didn't find it a physical thing to well, she thought repulsed by. But I mean, but if that's how she felt, that's how she felt. But I just kept reinforcing what I felt. But then she would feel differently. And same with the hair, the wearing the wig. This look, it's not my natural hair and all that. Well, that's true. And the hair is very important to women. I remember when Mum used to come home from having a haircut. Oh, well, Dad and I were waiting. She said, "Tell her how nice the hair is." I said, "Well, we don't know yet." He said, "Doesn't matter, just." Well, quite a few years ago, about a year after she was told she had secondary breast cancer, we were having some problems at home, as most couples do, I assume. I don't know. There are some perfect marriages, but I haven't found one yet. But and I realised I was trying to argue back and put my point of view, as I've always done. And I realised, well, hang on, I've got to give some ground here, because Fran's got a lot on coping with the diagnosis and what she's been told. So I took a step back and started to listen to what was causing her the grief, and my actions as well. And were my actions right or wrong? Well, that's how Fran perceived them. I thought, well, I better, if that's how she's perceiving them, then I need to be aware of that and modify those actions. And rather than just trying to justify, well, no, you're wrong because I did that, and I just, and it just perpetuate the problem. So, and then we moved on to a much better space after that. Would I have done that if she didn't have the secondary breast cancer? Well, probably should have, but whether I would have is another thing, and that's more for marriage guidance, because you got to know how much room, how much compromise to make to sustain the relationship. It's quite obvious now with the divorce rate as it is. A lot of people aren't prepared to make those compromises, and so it ends in divorce. Whereas I thought, well, we need to work through this together, and so I just took that back seat, and Fran then found a bit more peace, and things were markedly improved after that. Well, one of the things Fran said in a video about her doctor saying that this is her own journey, but we'll walk beside her. And it's true, you go along I used to go along to all her appointments. She'd like me to be there. And I found it useful because I'd hear things she wouldn't hear and vice versa. So you come out afterwards and talk about it and then put the two versions together, and you get pretty well close to what happened inside the surgery. So she'd ask me what I thought, and I'd give my view, and sometimes that might be contrary to hers, but I said, well, you asked me how I'd feel or what I'd do. Well, that's what I do, but that's not the right answer for you. And then we start to talk about what she wanted to do, and we'd work and we'd go through that way. Engineers don't make good husbands because they're always solving problems. So if Fran came to me with a problem, I've got the answer for you. But that's not what she was after. And I realised that sort of quickly that in engineering we use a term area under the curve. So if you have an axis like that and you have a curve like that and you measure the area underneath, and it's which is nothing particular for that, but Fran said, should I go on Taxol or what? She had the AC in the end of '08, very toxic for her. So she had 2 rounds of full treatment, then bailed out of the 3rd one at Christmas time, and then had 4 more rounds at 3/4 strength. And the 3/4 strength wasn't too bad, but wasn't as effective, of course. So we're talking about it, and I drew this graph, and someone reminded me of it recently, said it was very good, and Fran appreciated it. I said, well, if you have quality of life on this axis and time here, there's a balance, a compromise between the two. If you want time, well, there's always the chemo routes. And so if you start here and you have the chemo, you come down, you go along, and then the times that come up and they go down again, you have more chemo, and so it goes on. And so you get a little bit of area under here, and then not much down during the chemo time, a bit more here between the treatments, and less and more. So we sort of started here and said, well, Fran, probably without the chemo, you do something like that. And so there's that area of the curve more than the area under here, which is measuring quality and time, or what are you actually after? And so she thought about it, and she said, no, it does paint a picture, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. So she chose not to go with the Taxol solution and chose the non-treatment route. So what you're trading off is that, righto, it's shorter here, but there's not a lot of quality in this period, and there's not a lot of quality in this period, and so on. So you're just trying to work out which curve gives you the best combination of quality and time. And that's a very personal thing. But the other thing I did, which I won't draw, but I plotted up all her markers using Excel spreadsheets with the dates and all the results. And so you can see how the markers are bouncing along, and then they go up, and you have the chemo, and they come down. And because when it's all written in a tabulated form, you don't get an impression whether it's doubled or it's gone up 10%. And again, I plotted up, and Fran said, have you got it there? I said, yeah, you want to see it? Yes. So I'd show it to her, but if she didn't want to see it, then so I would just minimise it. But it was just another way of helping her form a picture of how she's going and how the treatment's going. And well, it did help me process it, because that's the way I process things in facts, and form a picture of where it's going, and see how effective the chemo has been with the markers coming down. Because the markers aren't a great picture for everyone, though, I understand. If they are, they're very accurate, but if they don't work for you, then there's no point plotting them. So you'd have to work out whether you are the markers are a good indicator for yourself. It is for some and not for others. We had 8 years with secondary breast cancer, and last year and the year before we planned some trips. So you just got to listen to what the partners are saying, what they'd like to do. And some people refer to it as a bucket list. I don't know if that's a good term, but it's just something, a life ambition, and try and realise those. The other one she wanted to do was see waratahs in the wild. And we organised that tour to the Blue Mountains back in January, and Fran said, but what if I'm too ill to go? I said, well, we'll lose some money, big deal. We've got bigger issues on our plate at that time. When we got back from Hamilton Island after our 35th anniversary, 2 weeks later she's too ill to travel. You're going to have that deep, meaningful conversation with your kids and your partner. Well, as you're getting more tired, it's hard to have that deep, meaningful conversation.
Yeah. You want to have it a little bit before then.
Yeah. But I often thought, you've had a life together.
That's right.
And so what is there to say? And that's a hard thing. It's a very personal thing, what you want to say. And I know one time Fran said, oh, you're not saying much. And I thought, well, it's interesting, because so we just spoke about things that have been arranged and whatnot, but do you profess your love constantly, or do you just hold their hand, or how do you show that? Well, that's a very personal thing, and there's no right or wrong. And so one thing that I said in the eulogy that point out to friends and family even that if you've got a choice of writing a letter saying how you feel about that person and all the things they've done that have influenced your life, and not writing the letter, well, write it. Doesn't matter if you get the words wrong, or your grammar's bad, or the spelling's poor, just write it. And the feelings will come through. And Fran got a few of those, and really appreciate the expression of the love from the family. Because there's a lot of us that, I don't think I'd be able to do it properly, or I wouldn't do it justice, or them might take it the wrong way. No, just do it, and just sit down and write it. And someone said, if you ever have to write something that's difficult, just sit down and write it, and then go back to it the next day and edit it then, rather than procrastinating. So it's a good idea just to sit down and write and let it come out. The support I received over the time was through the partners group. More often than not, I was the only one who phoned in. But it was good just to do a check-in with Tom to just reflect on how I was feeling, because he led the questions well, and because often you wouldn't be thinking about how you're feeling, you just ring at 11 o'clock on the day, but through his guidance, we talk about a number of things, coping with what was changing, coping with what I was feeling. Most times it felt it was okay, but it was good just to do that check-in and make sure that it was okay. And if it wasn't, it was a little bit sad, we'd get you to talk through that, and so you'd come out feeling better on the other side. At home, a number of friends were very supportive. Family was supportive. They came up every now and then. So it felt there was enough support just to keep me going. But the important thing is to keep going and be there for the partner. And just seeing the partner responding well to your support was support in itself, actually. So knowing that what you're doing is being effective, and we all want to do things to bear fruit. So when the partner's feeling good, and they say, well, that felt okay, and I can, I've got my own feelings, but being useful helps keep those together. There are times and you get a bit sad, but keeping busy, planning things, planning holidays and trips and how we're going to catch up with family, all those sort of things, all part of they're all supporting in themselves, that you felt that you can continue with life even though there was a limitation. Because Fran wanted to know what it was going to be like. He said, you'll just sleep more and more and be less and less interested in things. And that's pretty much, she was starting to sleep quite a lot. And when they wake up, the morphine controls the pain levels. But of course, with that, the morphine comes the subdued consciousness. But it's probably a blessing in many ways. So I often thought, what it'd be like if you didn't go through that. How does the body prepare itself? And because you just couldn't rock up and know, well, tomorrow's going to be the final day, and here I am feeling 95%. It'd be too. I don't think anyone could handle that. But the body just winds itself down. It really is an interesting, if that's the right word, but fortunate that the body does wind itself down, and you become less and less aware of things around you, and less and less aware of your own health, and less and less aware of your own consciousness. If you know what's there, I think it would help deal with it, because you know what's coming. And yeah, when the doctor was helpful when he said that you'll just get more and more tired and less interested in things. So when Fran stopped doing the crossword one morning, 2 weeks before she died, I realised that that was one of those moments that she was losing interest. And so I didn't say anything about it to her. You know, I didn't say, well, by the way, here we are. No, I just realised that, yes, and she'd then sleep a little bit more, and you're just aware of those things, and so you know where they are in the journey. Because that was always the unknown with, when you're starting the chemo, we often ask the doctor, well, you know, scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is where you're just taking some mild chemo and 10 is death, whereabouts are we? And they try and avoid that answer because it's hard to say where it is. But just, Fran found it useful to know roughly where along that continuum we were. We were at one end, or so have we got to the halfway point yet, or trying to understand where you are, and it's difficult, but I think it's human nature wanting to know. It's a sort of status report of how's it going. You know, when you wake up in the early hours of the morning and having those dark thoughts that you have, if you don't know, then it causes more anxiety, I believe. So the more you know, well, in our case anyway, the less anxious you are. And you can talk more openly then, because you know what the facts are, and you're not skirting around the issues. I mean, some things you just have to talk about. We found the home good in that the family could be there. Some of them stayed with us in the other rooms of the house, or with her sister who was in Cairns as well. And then they could just be there and come in and spend some time with Fran and go out and have a cup of coffee and watch TV or read a book. Whereas in hospital ward, if you're not with the patient, there's nothing else to do. And then you've got to go home, then you've got to come back, and all that toing and froing. Whereas at home, you don't have that. The family can stay there most of the day, and everything they need to do, they can do in the house. So it's good from that point of view. But no, just having been able to take that 2 months off work and care for Fran full time, it was I found it very rewarding that you could do that for someone, and just only get out for a few hours the occasional day. I get people in to look after Fran while I'd be out. Might just go to the shop or something. I wouldn't be away for too long because she'd get a bit anxious. But yeah, she often worried about, you know, just the physical help that a person who's ailing needs. And I said, well, it's just like looking after babies. I mean, it's interesting how the cycle of life comes round, and that you're able to care for babies where you care for an adult the same way. And is it good or is it bad? Well, it just has to be done, and you don't want to resent it. Otherwise, it becomes a terrible chore. So it's just a job, and do it with a good heart and the right spirit, and it's actually rewarding in a way. Yeah, that you're caring for them rather than letting someone else do it. And you think, well, it's nice, because if that's what the person wanted, of course, if they wanted to go to hospital and be cared for at hospital, well, that's another thing. Whereas Fran wanted to be cared for at home. So I was able to do all that. Yeah. What to give Fran at Christmas time for someone who only had a short period of time to live. I prepared an album of all the places we went last year, and my sister-in-law, or Fran's sister, and I did this scrapbooking album. In other words, I collected the photos and she did the scrapbooking. So my bit was very small there, but she came up with a wonderful arrangement. It was nice, and Fran loved it. And so when friends came to visit between Christmas and the 23rd of January, she would proudly show them what we did last year, and it was a good way of sharing and having nice memories and having that peace that it gives you, by looking back and saying that, yeah, that was good. The hardest part about that last few months, because you're walking beside your partner and holding their hand and doing that, but right at the end, when you come to that final door, you got to let go, and that's the hardest part. So you just got to let them go on their own trip then. And that's part of the grief. I mean, there's a lot of grief around, but you don't want to be scared of it. It will be sad, but it's part of how the body heals. And I remember sister telling me when our parents died, you want to have a good cry at some stage. It's cathartic. And I hadn't really cried at the time because there's family and friends there and things to be done, and you're sad, of course. But then I sat down to write the eulogy and told everyone to leave the house, so I wanted some time home. And right at the end of that, I had a good cry for quite a while. So but it was, yeah, it's all part of that. And you can move on then, and then you can read it at the funeral. So you're going well, you think, and then something will just it'll prompt, and yeah. So, but that will diminish over time, no doubt. But I'm not looking forward to that. It's just how life is. Life does go on, but it is what it is at the time. So it's looking back on the past, looking forward to the future. Just try and do the things together and not enjoy, but participate in the journey, walking beside your partner, and just hold their hand and just do the best that you can, and there's no right or wrong. You just got to do what you think's okay and listen to what the partner's doing, and monitor their body language and other things. So you'll pick up that you're doing the right thing, or sometimes not the right thing, and just modify what you're doing to help them find that peace.
Steps that led me to this place where nothing's certain, but now I've achieved a certain state of grace. I find I'm content with these sweetest days. They fly by, time seems short, and I try catch them like a child chasing dandelion seeds on a summer day. Blue skies, reach out, nothing but air in my way. And though my life seems so short, there are still some things that I intend to do. And what once seemed so important is so small. Content with these sweetest days. They sparkle with small moments, treasures kept inside my mind, precious photographs of these sweetest days. Blue skies. blue sky.